I am Leo. I'm 36 years old, and I just watched my own father deny a slice of birthday cake to my 5-year-old daughter because she didn't share his DNA. Before I tell you how I legally evicted my parents from the home I bought them and repossessed my brother's sports car in front of the entire neighborhood, let me know where you guys are watching from in the comments below. It was supposed to be a celebration. My mother's 60th birthday. A milestone. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror of my Lamborghini Urus. I didn't buy this car to show off. I bought it because it felt like a tank. Felt like armor. When you grow up the way I did, always the second choice, always the spare, you tend to surround yourself with things that make you feel invincible. You okay? Chloe asked. She placed her hand on my knee. Her touch was grounding, as always. Chloe is the kind of woman who can walk into a boardroom and silence a crowd with a look, but at home, she's the softest, most nurturing soul I've ever known. I'm fine, I lied. Just hoping they behave today. They better, Chloe said, turning to look at Sophie in the back seat. Look at her. She's an angel. Sophie was clutching a handmade card. She had spent 3 hours on it yesterday, gluing glitter and dried macaroni onto construction paper. It read "Happy Birthday, Grandma" in crooked, colorful letters. Sophie isn't my biological daughter. Chloe had her before we met, but from the moment I saw that little girl, she was mine. I adopted her legally 2 years ago. I signed the birth certificate. She is my daughter in every way that matters. But to my family, that was a different story. We pulled into the driveway of my parents' house. It was a beautiful property. A sprawling colonial-style home with a manicured lawn. It should be beautiful. I paid for the landscaping. In fact, I paid for the house. I paid for the renovations. I paid for the mortgage. But nobody at this party knew that. To the extended family, my father, Frank, was a successful retired businessman, and my brother, Julian, was a budding entrepreneur. Speaking of Julian, there it was. The signal green Porsche 911 GT3 parked right in the center of the driveway, blocking everyone else's path. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. I paid for the lease on that car. I paid the insurance. I paid for the gas that Julian burned while driving around town pretending to be a big shot. Showtime, I muttered. We got out. The air was crisp, typical for late autumn in New England. I picked Sophie up, and she wrapped her little arms around my neck. Do you think Grandma will like my card, Daddy? She whispered. She's going to love it, sweetie, I said, kissing her forehead. We walked into the backyard where the party was in full swing. There were about 40 people there, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors. My mother, Barbara, was holding court near the buffet table, wearing a diamond necklace I had bought her for Christmas 3 years ago. Leo, she called out, but her eyes immediately darted past me to the driveway. Oh, is that Julian? Did Julian just pull up? No, Mom, we just walked in, I said, keeping my voice even. Happy birthday. She gave me a quick, obligatory hug, barely touching me, before pulling away. She looked down at Sophie. Hello, Sophie. Her tone changed. It wasn't mean exactly, but it was thin, lacking substance, like she was greeting a neighbor's kid she barely knew. Hi, Grandma. Sophie beamed, thrusting the card forward. I made this. Oh, that's nice. Put it on the table with the other gifts, Mom said, waving her hand dismissively before turning back to the crowd. Everyone, Julian is here. Look at that car. I felt Chloe stiffen beside me. I squeezed her hand. Not yet, I thought. Let's just get through the cake. Julian strutted into the backyard like he owned the place. He was wearing sunglasses, even though it was partly cloudy, and a designer jacket that cost more than most people's monthly salary. He was 32 years old, but he acted like a frat boy on spring break. Sup, brother? Julian smirked, clapping me on the shoulder a little too hard. Nice SUV. A little soccer mom vibes, don't you think? Real men drive coupes. Real men pay their own car notes, Julian, I said quietly, so only he could hear. His smile faltered for a second. Then he laughed loudly, pretending I had told a joke. Classic Leo, always counting pennies. Hey, Mom, get the champagne. The afternoon dragged on. I watched the dynamic I had grown up with play out in real time. Julian was the sun, and my parents were the planets orbiting him. He told loud, exaggerated stories about his investment firm, which was actually just him day trading with money I deposited into his account every month. The relatives ate it up. They looked at him with awe. They looked at me with polite indifference. To them, I was just Leo, the guy who worked in logistics or something boring. I never corrected them. I ran a private equity firm specializing in distressed assets. I didn't need their validation, but Sophie did. I watched Sophie trying to play with her cousins. They were polite enough, but whenever my dad, Frank, came around, the dynamic shifted. He would toss a football with my cousin's son. He would swing my sister's daughter around. But whenever Sophie approached him, he would suddenly be too tired or busy. Then came the cake. It was a massive 3-tiered vanilla cake from a high-end bakery. Mom gathered everyone around. We sang happy birthday. Sophie was right in the front, her eyes wide, staring at the frosting flowers. She loved sweets. Okay, Dad announced, picking up the cake knife. Let's get the kids served first. Sophie stepped forward, holding her little paper plate. She was practically vibrating with excitement. Dad cut a large corner piece with a sugar rose, the best piece. Sophie reached out. Dad looked right at her. Then he looked over her head. Joey, come here, champ. This one's for you. He handed the plate to my cousin's son. Sophie lowered her hands. That's okay. She waited for the next piece. Dad cut another slice. Sarah, here you go, sweetheart. He cut another, and another. He handed them to every single child in the circle. Sophie was the only one left standing there, holding her empty plate. Her lower lip started to tremble. Grandpa, she whispered, can I have some? The backyard had gone quiet. People noticed. Chloe stepped forward, her face flushed with rage. Frank, you missed Sophie. Dad stopped wiping the knife. He looked at Sophie. Then he looked at me with a smirk that chilled my blood. It was a look of pure, unadulterated arrogance. Oh, sorry, Dad said, his voice loud enough for the back row to hear. But this cake is from La Maison. It's very expensive. We're running low. There is half a cake left, Frank, I said. My voice was low, dangerous. The air pressure in the yard seemed to drop. Dad shrugged. Well, you know what I mean, Leo. It's a family tradition. The cake is for the real grandkids. You know, blood. Time stopped. I heard a gasp from Aunt Martha. I saw Chloe lunge forward, but I caught her arm. Real grandkids. I repeated. Don't be sensitive, Dad scoffed, waving the knife like a conductor's baton. It's biology, Leo. Sophie is a sweet kid, but let's not pretend she's a Whitmore. Julian's kids, when he has them, those will be the real grandkids. Sophie can have some of the cookies on the side table. Sophie dropped her plate. It fluttered to the grass. She turned and buried her face in Chloe's stomach, sobbing quietly. It wasn't a tantrum sob. It was the sound of a heart breaking. My mother chimed in from the side, sipping her wine. Oh, stop crying, Sophie. Don't be dramatic like your father. It's just cake. Something inside me snapped. But it wasn't a loud snap. It was a quiet, mechanical click, like a safety being switched off on a weapon. I looked at my father. I looked at the house I bought. I looked at the car Julian drove. I looked at the clothes on their backs. Okay, I said. Okay. Dad laughed. See? Leo agrees. He knows his place. I pulled out my phone. I didn't look at them. I opened my secure messaging app. I found the contact name Sterling Legal and Finance. I typed 3 words. Execute Plan 0. I hit send. Leo, Chloe whispered, looking at my face. She knew that look. She had only seen it once before, when a competitor tried to blackmail my firm. I destroyed that company in 48 hours. Get Sophie in the car, I said softly. We're leaving. We're done, I said. I looked up at my father one last time. He was licking frosting off his thumb, looking smug. He thought he had won. He thought he had asserted his dominance as the patriarch. He had no idea he had just signed his own financial death warrant. "Hey!" Julian called out as we turned to leave. "You're leaving? You haven't even given Mom her present. Or did you forget to get one because you're too busy playing pretend daddy?" I stopped. I turned around slowly. The entire party was watching. "I didn't forget," I said. My voice carried across the lawn, clear and steady. "I got her exactly what she deserves. You'll all get it. Monday morning." I walked to the Lamborghini, buckled my weeping daughter in, and started the engine. The V8 roared to life, a deep, guttural growl that shook the windows of the house. As we pulled away, my phone buzzed. It was Sterling. Received. Freezing all assets. Initiating foreclosure protocols. Canceling cards. It's done. I looked in the rearview mirror at the shrinking figure of my father holding that knife. "Enjoy the cake, Dad," I whispered. "It's the last thing I'm ever buying you." The drive home was silent for the first 10 minutes. The only sound was the hum of the tires on the asphalt and Sophie's occasional sniffle from the back seat. My hands were gripping the leather steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. I wasn't seeing the road. I was seeing a montage of 36 years of disrespect playing out in my mind. "Leo," Chloe said softly. She reached across the center console and placed her hand over my clenched fist. "You did the right thing walking away. But what did you mean back there? What is Monday morning?" I took a deep breath, forcing my heart rate to slow down. "I mean, I'm done, Chloe. I'm cutting the cord. All of it. The allowance? The allowance. The mortgage. The car payments. The insurance. The country club membership. Everything." Chloe's eyes widened. She knew how much I supported them. She was the only one who knew the real numbers. "Leo, that's almost $20,000 a month. If you cut that, they starve," I finished. "Or they learn to work. I don't care which one it is anymore." "Daddy?" A small voice came from the back. I immediately softened my expression, adjusting the mirror to see Sophie. Her eyes were red and puffy. "Yes, Princess. Is Grandpa mad at me because I'm adopted?" That question hit me like a physical blow to the chest. It was the question I had been running from, the question I had tried to bury under piles of cash and expensive gifts for my parents, hoping they would overlook biology and just love the child I loved. "No, Sophie," I said firmly. "Grandpa isn't mad at you. Grandpa is a confused old man who made a very big mistake. You are perfect. You hear me? You are my daughter. You are a Whitmore, and you don't need his cake. We're going to get the biggest, most expensive cake in the city. Just for us." She managed a weak smile. "Chocolate. Double chocolate." As we drove, the memories started flooding back. This wasn't new. The real grandkids comment was just the tip of the iceberg. I remembered being 12 years old. I had won the state math Olympiad. I came home beaming, holding the trophy. My mother was in the kitchen cooking Julian's favorite meal because he had, what? Managed to not fail a history test? "That's nice, Leo," she had said without turning around. "Put it in your room. And be quiet, Julian is watching TV." I remembered being 22. I had graduated college summa cum laude, working 2 jobs to pay my own tuition because the college fund my parents saved had mysteriously been drained to pay for Julian's legal fees after he got a DUI and crashed into a parked police cruiser. "You're the smart one, Leo," Dad had said, clapping me on the back while I signed the student loan papers that would saddle me with debt for a decade. "You can figure it out. Julian needs our help. He's a free spirit. A free spirit." That was their code word for irresponsible narcissist. I remembered the day I started my company. I asked my father for a small loan, $10,000, just to buy servers. He laughed. "Investment? In you? Leo, stick to a salary job. You don't have the killer instinct. Julian has big ideas." Julian's big ideas were pyramid schemes and failed dropshipping businesses. So I built my empire alone. I ate ramen noodles for 3 years. I worked 18-hour days. I slept under my desk. And when I made my first million, who was the first person to call? Dad. "We always knew you could do it, son. We're so proud. By the way, the roof is leaking. And your mother is so stressed. I paid for the roof, then the car, then the house. I thought I was buying their love. I thought if I gave them everything, they would finally look at me the way they looked at Julian. I was an idiot. My phone buzzed on the dashboard mount. A text from Mom. Mom, you are being ridiculous. Come back and apologize to your father. You upset Julian. He says you were flaunting your wealth. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Flaunting my wealth? I pay for the gas in his tank. Don't answer it, Chloe warned. I'm not. Another text. Mom, seriously, Leo, we are family. You don't turn your back on family over a piece of cake. Stop being so sensitive. It's unattractive. I pulled the car over to the side of the road. Leo? Chloe asked. I picked up the phone. My thumb hovered over the screen. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to list every dollar, every sacrifice, every time I swallowed my pride. But I remembered the rule of negotiation. He who speaks less wins. I didn't reply. I opened the banking app on my phone. The administrative one connected to the family trust one had set up. I saw the transactions. Julian, gas station, $85. Mom, Nordstrom, $450. Dad, liquor store, $200. They were spending my money while I was driving away. I took a screenshot of the real grandkids comment my mind had replayed 1,000 times. I looked at Sophie in the rearview mirror, now dozing off, clutching her rejected card. Sterling, I said, using the voice-to-text feature. Yes, sir? The reply was instant. Sterling never slept. Add the country club membership to the cancellation list. And call the lease company for the Porsche. Tell them the primary payer is defaulting. I want a repossession order issued immediately. Expedited service. Understood. The repo team can be there within 24 hours. Do you want to give a warning? No warning, I said. Let it be a surprise. I merged back onto the highway. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the road. The anger was settling into something colder, harder. It was resolve. For years, I told myself that supporting them was my duty, that being the bigger man meant carrying the load. But I realized now that I wasn't being the bigger man. I was being an enabler. I was funding their abuse. I glanced at Chloe. I need to check the legality of the housing deed when we get home. I put it in a limited liability company, LLC. Remember? Chloe nodded. She was a paralegal before we got married. She knew the game. The LLC is solely in your name. They are tenants at will. No lease agreement signed. In our state, that means you have to give them 30 days notice to vacate. 30 days, I mused. That's generous. It's the law, Leo. We do this by the book. If we slip up, they'll sue. You know Julian will try to sue. Let him try. He can't afford a lawyer unless I pay for one. We arrived home, our actual home. A modern, glass and steel sanctuary overlooking the city skyline. It was quiet, peaceful, and filled with love. Everything my parents' house wasn't. We put Sophie to bed. We got her the chocolate cake we promised, and we sat with her until she fell asleep. When I walked back into the living room, my phone was blowing up. 7 missed calls from Dad. 3 from Julian. A voicemail from my Aunt Martha. I pressed play on the voicemail, putting it on speaker so Chloe could hear. Leo, it's Aunt Martha. Listen, your mother is hysterical. She says you stormed out and ruined the party. She says you're threatening to cut them off. Honey, you can't do that. They're old. They rely on you. You have so much. Why are you being so greedy? Just apologize and send the monthly check. Don't be like this. Greedy? Chloe repeated, shaking her head. You pay their entire existence, and you're the greedy one. They don't know, I said. Mom tells them the money comes from Dad's investments. They don't know I'm the source. Well, Chloe poured 2 glasses of wine and handed me one. Her eyes sparkled with a fierce light. I think it's time they found out. I took the glass. Plan Zero isn't just about cutting money, Chloe. It's about exposing the truth. Tomorrow is Monday. I'm going to the office early. I'm going to draft the eviction notice myself. I looked at the darkened screen of my phone. They were probably sitting around the kitchen table right now, eating the rest of that expensive cake, complaining about how ungrateful I was. Confident that I would come crawling back in a few days with an apology and a check. They had no idea that the ATM had just been permanently unplugged. To real family, I said, raising my glass to Chloe. To real family, she echoed. But as I drank, a notification popped up on my screen. It was an email from my bank. A joint account alert. Alert. Withdrawal attempt of $5,000 initiated by Barbara Whitmore. My mother. She was trying to pull cash from an old emergency account I had set up for her medical expenses years ago. She sensed something was wrong and was trying to grab cash while she could. I opened the app. Decline. Then I transferred the remaining balance to my primary savings. The screen flashed. Transfer complete. Balance, $0. Game on, Mom, I whispered. Monday morning felt different. Usually, I approached the work week with a sense of routine obligation. Today, I felt like a general walking into a command center. My office was located on the top floor of a high-rise in the financial district. I walked in at 7 a.m. sharp. My assistant, Sarah, was already there. She looked up, surprised. Good morning, Leo. You're early. And you look intense. Get Sterling on the secure line. And get the head of my personal security detail in here. Now. Sarah didn't ask questions. She nodded and grabbed her phone. 10 minutes later, Mr. Sterling walked in. He was a man in his 50s, wearing a suit that cost more than my brother's car. He was my CFO, my lawyer, and my cleaner. He knew where every body was buried, financially speaking. It's done, I asked, not looking up from my laptop. As of 8 a.m. this morning, the faucet is dry, Sterling said, sitting down and opening a leather folder. Let's review the damage. He slid a document across the desk. Item 1. The Amex Black card held by your mother. Limit was $50,000 a month. Cancelled. Reported as lost/stolen to trigger an immediate freeze. Good. Item 2. The mortgage on the Colonial property at 42 Oak Drive. You hold the note through Whitmore Holdings, LLC. We have ceased payments to the bank servicing the escrow. But more importantly, we have prepared the notice to quit. It's a 30-day eviction notice. Send it via courier. I want a signature required. I want proof they received it. Item 3. The Porsche lease. Sterling allowed himself a rare, tiny smile. This is the interesting one. The lease is in your name with Julian as an authorized driver. Since you are the leaseholder, you have the right to voluntary repossession. I've contacted a recovery agency. They are tracking the GPS of the vehicle now. They'll pick it up as soon as it's stationary in a public place. Perfect. Item 4. The Startup Capital Fund for Julian. The monthly transfer of $4,000 for his business expenses. Cut it, I said, and audit the past 2 years. I want to see where that money really went. I suspect online gambling. Already done, sir. DraftKings and crypto scams. We have the logs. We spent the next hour dismantling the financial infrastructure of my parents' lives. It was terrifying how dependent they were on me. Utilities, health insurance, landscaping, pool maintenance, even their Netflix subscription. Cut it all. Around 10:30 a.m., the first domino fell. My phone rang. It was Julian. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. And again. I pressed the speaker button. This is Leo. Bro, what the hell is going on? Julian's voice was high-pitched, panicked. There was background noise, wind, traffic. Who is this? I asked calmly. It's Julian. Don't play games. I'm at the Shell station on Main Street. I just tried to fill up the Porsche and the card declined. I tried it 3 times. The guy behind the counter is looking at me like I'm a bum. Fix it. The card didn't decline, Julian. It's canceled. What? Why? Did you get hacked? No. I canceled it. I told you yesterday. The cake was for the real grandkids. The gas is for the real car owners. Since you don't own that car and you don't pay for it, I guess you're walking. You can't be serious. I have a date tonight. I need the car. I'm on empty. Better start pushing. It's good cardio. I'm telling Dad, he screamed. Go ahead. Tell him his phone bill is due tomorrow and I'm not paying that either. I hung up. Sterling looked at me. Cold. Necessary, I replied. The second domino fell an hour later. It was my mother. But she didn't call me. She called my office line, screaming at the receptionist. Sarah transferred the call to me, looking pale. Mrs. Whitmore is very upset. I picked up. Hello, Barbara. How dare you? She shrieked. I am standing at the grocery store checkout with a cart full of food for the week, and my card was rejected. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? The cashier knows me. Maybe you should try using your own money, Mom. You have a pension. You have Social Security. That is pittance. That hardly covers my bingo nights. Leo, turn the card back on right now. People are staring. Remember the cake, Mom? Remember Sophie crying? Oh my God. Are you still on about that? She's a child. She forgot about it 5 minutes later. She didn't forget. And neither did I. By the way, Mom, I looked into that charity fund you asked me to top up last month. The one for the church roof repair. Silence on the other end. I called the pastor. The roof was fixed 2 years ago. Where is that money going, Mom? Is it going to Julian's debts? I have to go, she stammered. Don't bother going home, I said. Or actually, do go home. There's a courier waiting for you with a very important document. Click. I leaned back in my chair. My heart was pounding, but not from fear. It was adrenaline. It was the feeling of a weight being lifted off my chest. A weight I had carried for 20 years. Sir, Sterling said, looking at his tablet. We have a situation developing at the lobby security desk. Let me guess. My father. Yes, he's down there. He's demanding to see you. He's shouting about filial piety and ungrateful brats. Security wants to know if they should let him up. I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city streets below. I imagined my father, a man who had always loomed so large in my life, now reduced to a shouting old man in a lobby he had no power in. No, I said. Tell them to escort him out. If he resists, call the police. Sterling paused. The police, sir? That's your father. I turned around. My eyes were dry. He made his choice when he chose his real family. I'm just protecting mine. Understood. I watched from the window as 2 uniformed guards escorted my father out of the building. He was flailing his arms, pointing up at the tower, screaming something I couldn't hear. But I knew what he was saying. He was playing the victim. He was rewriting the narrative. But this time I held the pen. My phone buzzed again. A text from Chloe. Chloe, Julian just pulled up to our house. He's banging on the door. He looks drunk or high. Sophie is scared. The blood in my veins turned to ice. Sterling, I barked, grabbing my keys. Call the police. Send them to my house. Now. I ran out of the office, leaving the stunned staff behind. This wasn't just financial warfare anymore. Now it was physical. I broke every speed limit getting home. My Lamborghini tore down the highway, weaving through traffic. I wasn't driving a status symbol anymore. I was driving a weapon. My phone was connected to the car's Bluetooth. I had Chloe on the line. Is the door locked? I shouted. Yes, the alarm is on. Chloe's voice was trembling but controlled. He's outside screaming. He's throwing rocks at the windows. Leo, he's saying terrible things. Don't open it. The police are 2 minutes away. I'm 5 minutes away. He's yelling about the inheritance, Chloe said. He's saying Sophie isn't real family and she's stealing his money. Record it, I commanded. Film everything. Do not engage. When I turned onto my street, I saw the flashing lights. 2 squad cars were already there. I skidded to a halt in front of my house. Julian was in the front yard, being restrained by 2 officers. He was shirtless, his designer jacket thrown on the grass, face red with rage and exertion. He looked nothing like the golden child my parents bragged about. He looked like a desperate junkie. I jumped out of the car. That's my brother, I told the officers, holding my hands up. I'm the homeowner. Leo, Julian screamed when he saw me. He lunged forward, but the cops held him back. You thief! You stole my life. Mom told me. You cut the trust fund. That's my money. Grandpa meant that for me. I walked up to him, stopping just out of spitting range. Grandpa left us nothing, Julian. Grandpa died broke. Every dime in that trust fund came from my sweat. My work. Liar, he spat. You manipulated them. You're jealous because Mom loves me more. The officer looked at me. Do you want to press charges, sir? Trespassing? Disturbing the peace. I looked at the house. Sophie was in the window, peeking out from behind the curtain. She looked terrified. Yes, I said. Press charges. I want a restraining order. Leo, you can't. Julian's eyes went wide. The reality was setting in. I'm your brother. You can't put me in jail. A brother wouldn't come to my house and terrorize my daughter, I said coldly. Take him away. As they shoved Julian into the back of the cruiser, my phone pinged. It was a notification from Facebook. My Aunt Martha had tagged me in a post. I am heartbroken today. My nephew Leo Whitmore, who has been blessed with so much wealth, has thrown his own elderly parents out on the street and had his brother arrested. All because of a misunderstanding over a piece of cake. Money really is the root of all evil. Please pray for Frank and Barbara. Below it, dozens of comments from family members and neighbors. Unbelievable. I always knew he was cold. Poor Barbara. After all she did for him. The smear campaign had begun. They were controlling the narrative. They were painting me as the villain. The greedy, heartless billionaire son abandoning his poor, frail parents. I walked inside. Chloe was holding Sophie on the couch. Sophie was shaking. He said bad words, Daddy, Sophie whispered. He said I'm a fake girl. I knelt down and hugged them both. The anger I felt was a physical thing, a burning coal in my stomach. He's gone, baby. He's never coming back. I stood up and looked at Chloe. Did you get the video? Yes. Chloe held up her phone. Clear audio. Him threatening to burn the house down. Him calling Sophie names. Good. Keep that safe. What are you going to do about the Facebook post? Chloe asked. Your clients might see that. It could hurt your reputation. Let them talk, I said. They're trying to use shame as a weapon. But shame only works if you have something to hide. I have nothing to hide. I paced the living room. They want a war? Fine. I've been fighting with one hand tied behind my back to protect their dignity. I'm done protecting them. There's a family gathering on Sunday, Chloe reminded me. The intervention. Your Aunt Martha texted me. They want us to come to her house to mediate the situation. Mediate? I scoffed. They mean bully Leo into opening the checkbook again. Are we going? I stopped pacing. I looked at the eviction notice copy on the table. I looked at the repo order for the Porsche. I looked at the video on Chloe's phone. Yes, I said. We're going. But we're not going to apologize. We're going to end this. I need to prepare, I said, pulling out my laptop. I need the deed, the bank statements, the transcripts of the voicemails, and the video. I'm going to print it all out. You're going to present evidence? Chloe asked. No. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. I'm going to drop a nuke. The next few days were a blur of tension. Julian was bailed out by Mom, using who knows what money, probably a payday loan. The nasty texts continued. Dad left voicemails oscillating between rage, you are dead to me, and begging. We can't pay the electric bill. Son, please. I ignored them all. I focused on Sophie. We took her to the park. We bought her ice cream. We reassured her she was safe. But I knew the final showdown was coming. Sunday at Aunt Martha's. The whole clan would be there. They thought they were dragging me into a court of public opinion where they were the judges. They didn't realize I was the executioner. Sunday arrived with a gray, ominous sky. It matched my mood perfectly. We pulled up to Aunt Martha's house. There were cars lining the street. The whole extended family was there. Felt like walking into a trap. Ready? I asked Chloe. She adjusted her blazer, looking fierce. Born ready. Let's protect our girl. We had left Sophie with a trusted babysitter. I wasn't exposing her to this toxicity again. We walked in. The living room fell silent. About 20 people were squeezed onto sofas and folding chairs. My parents sat in the middle like martyrs on trial. Mom was dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Dad sat with his arms crossed, looking stern. Julian was there, looking rough, nursing a beer. Leo, Aunt Martha stood up. She was the matriarch of the Flying Monkeys, always enabling my parents' behavior. Thank you for coming. We need to settle this. This misunderstanding has gone too far. It's not a misunderstanding, Martha, Dad grunted. It's betrayal, pure and simple. He had me arrested, Julian shouted, pointing a finger at me. My own brother. You came to my house and threatened my 5-year-old, I said calmly, remaining standing near the door. You're lucky I didn't break your jaw. See, Mom wailed. See how violent he is? He's changed. It's the money. It's corrupted him. Aunt Martha raised her hands. Okay, let's calm down. Leo, look at your parents. They are elderly. They have health issues. You can't just cut them off. It's cruel. We know you're upset about the cake thing. And Frank is sorry about that. Aren't you, Frank? Frank grunted something unintelligible. It wasn't just cake, I said. But that's irrelevant now. We propose a compromise, Uncle Bob. A man who had borrowed money from me 10 years ago and never paid it back, spoke up. You reinstate the allowance, maybe reduced by 10% to show you're serious, and you apologize to Julian for the police incident. And we all move on. Family is family. I looked around the room. They all nodded. They looked so self-righteous. They truly believed I owed them my life, my labor, my success. I laughed. It started as a chuckle and grew into a loud, genuine laugh. What's so funny? Julian sneered. You guys? I said, shaking my head. You really have no idea, do you? You think this is a negotiation. You think I'm here to bargain. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. I'm not here to negotiate, I said, my voice hardening. I'm here to clarify reality. I threw the first document on the coffee table. It landed with a heavy thud. This, I pointed, is the deed to the house at 42 Oak Drive. Mom, Dad, you've told everyone for years that you bought it with your retirement savings. The truth is, I bought it. My company owns it. You haven't paid a dime in rent in 10 years. The room went quiet. Mom's face went pale. Leo, don't. I threw the next document. This is the lease agreement for the Porsche. Julian, you told everyone you bought it with your bonus from your tech startup. The truth is, I pay the lease. And your startup? Zachelle. I have the bank records here showing 90% of the capital I gave you went to DraftKings and FanDuel. A gasp rippled through the room. Julian stood up, face red. That's fake. He's forging documents. And this, I held up a USB drive, is the video from my front porch security camera 3 days ago. Does anyone want to hear what golden child Julian called my daughter? Does anyone want to hear him threaten to burn down my house with us inside? I looked at Aunt Martha. Do you want to play it, Martha? Or should we just assume it contradicts your Facebook post about me being the villain? Martha sat down, deflated. She looked at Julian with disgust. Now, I stepped into the center of the room. Here is the reality. There is no compromise. There is no allowance. The Bank of Leo is closed. Permanently. You can't do this, Dad shouted, standing up. I raised you. I put a roof over your head. And I put a roof over yours for the last decade. I roared back, finally letting the anger loose. I paid for your hip surgery, Dad. I paid for Mom's cruises. I paid for Julian's DUIs. I paid for everything, hoping that one day, just one day, you would treat me like a son and not a servant. But you couldn't even give my daughter a piece of cake. My voice echoed off the walls. No one moved. You want to talk about real family? I looked at my father. Real family protects each other. Real family doesn't leech off you until you're dry and then insult your children. I pulled out the final envelope. The eviction notice. This is an official notice to quit. I handed it to my father. He took it with trembling hands. You have 30 days to vacate the property. I'm selling the house. Selling it? Mom whispered, horrified. But where will we go? I don't know, I said. Maybe you can stay with Julian in his... Oh wait, Julian doesn't have an apartment. I paid for that too, and I canceled the rent check this morning. You're ruining us, Julian screamed. No, Julian, I said, looking him dead in the eye. I'm letting you experience the one thing you've never had in your life. Consequences. I turned to leave. The silence was heavy, suffocating. But it wasn't the silence of me being ostracized anymore. It was the silence of fear. They realized the power had shifted. The king was dead. Oh, and one more thing, I said at the door. If any of you contact Sophie, Chloe, or me again, I will release the gambling records and the security footage to every neighbor, every friend, and every church member you know. I will sue for the back rent, which totals about $500,000. Do not test me. I walked out the door. The air outside tasted sweet. Tasted like freedom. The drive home from Aunt Martha's was the lightest I had ever felt. I turned on the radio and sang along to a classic rock song. Chloe laughed, tears in her eyes. You were amazing, she said. I was just telling the truth, I replied. But the universe wasn't done with them yet. The consequences I set in motion were rolling out like a tidal wave. The next morning, Monday, I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the GPS tracker on the Porsche. Asset location, 42 Oak Drive. Status, stationary. Recovery team en route. I checked the security cameras I still had access to at my parents' house. I owned the house after all. I saw the tow truck pull up. A massive flatbed with a repo hook. On the screen, I watched Julian run out of the house in his boxers, screaming. He tried to block the truck. The repo man, a burly guy who looked like he ate nails for breakfast, simply handed him a clipboard. Julian tried to fight. He pushed the repo man. Bad move. The repo man stepped back and pepper sprayed him. Julian collapsed on the lawn, rolling around in agony. My dad came out waving his cane. The neighbors were coming out on their porches, phones out, recording. They hooked the Porsche. They lifted it up. My dad's pride and joy, even though he didn't pay for it, was hoisted into the air, dangling like a dead fish. They drove off with the car. Julian lay on the grass, defeated. I saved the video footage, not to share, but to remind myself why I could never go back. 2 weeks later, the moving vans arrived. They didn't hire a professional company. They couldn't afford it. It was a you-rent-it truck. Uncle Bob and a few cousins were helping them load boxes. I didn't go to watch. I didn't need to. Sterling handled the walkthrough. He reported back to me later that afternoon. The house is in fair condition, Sterling said. But they stripped the copper piping from the basement bathroom. Of course they did, I sighed. Deduct it from the security deposit. Oh wait, they never paid one. Just add it to the civil suit file. Where did they go? I asked. Your parents moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on the south side. Modest. Assisted living wasn't an option with their current assets. And Julian? He's crashing on their couch. But I heard from a contact at the precinct that he's facing charges for the assault on the repo man. He'll need a public defender. Good luck to him, I said. The silence from the family was absolute. No more texts. No more calls. My threat to expose the gambling debts and the video had worked. They were terrified of the social shame. But the biggest change wasn't with them. It was with us. That Friday night we had a new beginning party. Just me, Chloe, and Sophie. We ordered 3 different pizzas. We built a fort in the living room out of blankets and pillows. And we had cake. A massive, double chocolate cake from the best bakery in the city. I put it on the coffee table. I cut a huge slice, the one with the biggest chocolate flour. Who gets the first piece? Sophie asked, eyeing it. The realest grandkid I know, I said, handing it to her. She took a bite, getting frosting all over her nose. She giggled. It tastes like victory. Chloe laughed. Where did you hear that word? Cartoons, Sophie shrugged. I looked at my family, my chosen family. I realized I hadn't lost anything by cutting off my parents. I had only gained. I gained my dignity. I gained my financial freedom. And most importantly, I gained the ability to look my daughter in the eye and know I protected her. My phone buzzed one last time that night. It was an email from Zillow. Listing alert, 42 Oak Drive is now on the market. I smiled and swiped delete. That house was just brick and mortar. My home was right here, inside this blanket fort, covered in chocolate frosting. Daddy, Sophie asked, are we safe now? Yes, baby. I hugged her tight. We're safe. Nobody is ever going to make you feel small again. I had won the war. But as I watched the city lights twinkle outside, I knew one thing. The best revenge wasn't the eviction, or the repo, or the lawsuit. The best revenge was simply being happy without them. 6 months. That is how long it takes to detox a life. If you had asked me on the day of that disastrous birthday party where I saw myself in half a year, I probably would have said I'd be in a courtroom battling frivolous lawsuits or drowning in guilt. I expected the transition to be a war of attrition. But the funny thing about cutting out a tumor is that once the initial surgery pain fades, you don't miss the sickness. You just feel light. It was a Tuesday in May, a crisp, beautiful spring morning. I was standing in the showroom of the premier luxury dealership in the city. The air smelled of espresso and expensive leather. Mr. Whitmore, the sales manager, a sharp man named David, walked over with a key fob in his hand. She's ready for you. I turned. There it was. A Ferrari Roma. Silver gray, understated, elegant, but with an engine that could tear a hole in the ozone layer. For years, I drove practical cars because my father said sports cars were frivolous, while simultaneously demanding I lease a Porsche for Julian. I had denied myself the fruits of my own labor because I was too busy funding their delusions of grandeur. It's beautiful, I said, running my hand over the hood. It's yours, David smiled. You worked for it. I drove it off the lot. The engine didn't roar like a teenager's toy. It purred like a jungle cat. I wasn't buying this car to show off to the neighbors or to post on Instagram. I was buying it because, for the first time in my life, my money was my own. Every cent I earned wasn't pre-allocated to a family bailout fund. I picked Sophie up from school that afternoon. When she saw the car, her jaw dropped. Daddy, it looks like a spaceship. Get in, astronaut. I grinned. We're going on a mission. Where? To get ice cream. And then we're meeting someone. Sophie's smile faltered slightly. Is it Grandpa? No, honey. I reached over and squeezed her hand. Never him. It's Aunt Sarah. Do you remember her? Mommy's sister is Aunt Jenna. But this is Daddy's aunt. The quiet lady with the glasses. The one who gave me the extra cookie when Grandpa wasn't looking? That's the one. Sarah had reached out a week ago. She was my mother's younger sister, but they were polar opposites. Sarah was a librarian, quiet, observant, and had always kept her distance from the family drama. She was the reluctant witness to my childhood. When I evicted my parents, the rest of the family blocked me. Sarah was the only one who sent a text. Can we talk? I have something you need to know. We met at a small cafe near the park. Sarah was sitting in a corner booth, looking nervous. When she saw Sophie, her face softened. Hi, Leo. Hi, Sophie, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Hi, Aunt Sarah, Sophie said politely, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I ordered you a hot chocolate. Sarah slid a mug across the table. Sophie's eyes lit up. Thank you for coming, Sarah, I said, sitting down. I know the rest of the family has declared me public enemy number 1. They have, Sarah sighed, taking off her glasses to wipe them. It's a mess, Leo. Your parents, they aren't doing well in the apartment. Julian is facing trial next month for the assault on the repo man. They are miserable. I assume they sent you here to ask for money? I asked, my guard going up. No. Sarah shook her head vigorously. They don't know I'm here. If Barbara knew, she'd disown me too. She took a deep breath. I came because I saw what you posted, or what Chloe posted, about the trip to Paris you're planning. And I saw how happy Sophie looked in the photos. It made me realize I've been silent for too long. Silent about what? About why they treated you that way. I leaned back. I know why. Because Julian is the golden child. Because I was the nerd. Because I'm adopted. Wait. No. I'm biological. I never understood it, honestly. I just accepted it. It wasn't just favoritism, Leo. Sarah lowered her voice. It was jealousy. Jealousy? Of a child. Do you remember when you were 7? You took apart the toaster and put it back together because you wanted to see how it worked? Frank couldn't even change a light bulb without complaining. Do you remember when you corrected Barbara's grammar in front of her friends at the church picnic? I chuckled humorlessly. I got grounded for a week for that. They were intimidated by you, Sarah said, her eyes intense. You were brilliant. You were intense. You saw through things. Julian was simple. He was needy. He made them feel necessary. He made them feel like parents because he was always in trouble. But you didn't need them. Even when you were 10, you didn't really need them. That terrified them. So they tried to break you. They tried to make you feel small so you would stay under their thumb. They elevated Julian because he was a reflection of their own mediocrity. And they tore you down because you were a reminder of what they could never be. I sat there stunned. The cafe noise faded into the background. For decades, I thought I wasn't enough. I thought if I just earned more, gave more, achieved more, they would finally love me. But the truth was the opposite. My success was the very thing that alienated them. They didn't hate me because I was a failure. They resented me because I was a success they couldn't control. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. Because, Sarah reached across the table and touched my hand. I watched you walk away that day at the party, and I realized you were the only one of us who ever had the courage to break the cycle. I wanted you to know that it wasn't your fault. None of it was ever your fault. A single tear rolled down my cheek. I quickly wiped it away. Thank you, Sarah. Don't give them a dime, Leo, she whispered fiercely. They will never change. You stick to your guns. You protect that little girl. We left the cafe an hour later. I felt lighter than I had in years. The last lingering shred of guilt, the tiny voice asking, was I too harsh? Vanished. It wasn't my burden to carry anymore. Daddy, why are you crying? Sophie asked as I buckled her into the Ferrari. I'm not sad, baby. I smiled at her. I'm just relieved. I just found out that I passed a test I've been taking for 30 years. Did you get an A? I got an A+. That evening, I sat down with Chloe and Sterling to finalize the next phase of our lives. The lawsuit from Julian regarding the trust fund was dismissed. Sterling reported, not even looking up from his tablet. The judge actually laughed when he saw the gambling records. Dismissed with prejudice. He can't refile. And the parents? They are currently 3 months behind on rent at their new apartment. My sources say they are applying for state assistance. It's a significant drop in lifestyle from the country club. It's what they can afford, I said. It's reality. On a brighter note, Sterling slid a brochure across the desk. The itinerary for Europe is set. First class on Emirates. The suite at the Ritz in Paris. Private tour of the Louvre. And I managed to secure that reservation at the restaurant inside the Eiffel Tower. I looked at Chloe. She was beaming. We leave in 3 days, I said. 3 days later, we were at 30,000 feet. Sophie was asleep in her lie-flat seat, clutching a new teddy bear the flight attendant had given her. Chloe was sipping champagne. I looked out the window at the clouds. I thought about the real grandkids comment. I thought about the cake. My father wanted to define family by blood. He wanted to define legacy by DNA. I looked at Sophie. She didn't share my blood, but she shared my values. She shared my heart. She shared my name. What are you thinking about? Chloe asked softly. I'm thinking, I turned to her. That this is the best money I've ever spent. We landed in Paris, the city of lights. For Sophie, it was a fairy tale come to life. We spent days walking the Seine, eating crepes, and laughing until our sides hurt. There was no tension, no walking on eggshells, no waiting for a passive-aggressive comment. On the last night, we had dinner at the Eiffel Tower. The city sprawled out below us, a grid of golden light. The waiter brought out dessert. It was a massive chocolate soufflé, decorated with gold leaf. Poor mademoiselle. The waiter bowed to Sophie. Sophie's eyes went wide. She looked at the cake. Then she looked at me. A shadow crossed her face. A memory of a different cake, a different party. Is it for me? She whispered. Or is it for the real kids? My heart shattered and reformed in a split second. I leaned across the table. I took her small hands in mine. Sophie, look at me. Look at Daddy. She looked up, her blue eyes shimmering. You are the realest kid in the world. You are my daughter. This cake is for you. Every cake, for the rest of your life, is for you. Okay? She nodded slowly. Then she smiled. A real, genuine, unburdened smile. She picked up her spoon and dug in. It's good, she squealed. I took a sip of my wine and looked out at Paris. I had won. Not because I had destroyed my family, but because I had built a new one. A better one. We returned home to a mountain of mail, but for the first time I didn't dread opening it. Sterling had filtered out the hate mail, the legal threats, and the bills from my former life. But there was one letter he had left on my desk. It was handwritten. The envelope was cheap, drugstore quality. The handwriting was shaky, but unmistakable. It was from my father. I sat in my study, the evening sun casting long shadows across the mahogany floor. The house was quiet. Chloe was giving Sophie a bath upstairs. I could hear their muffled laughter through the ceiling, a sound that had become the soundtrack of my new life. I picked up the letter, felt light, insignificant. A few months ago, this handwriting would have spiked my cortisol levels. Now it was just ink on paper. I opened it. Leo, I am writing this because your mother made me. She says we need to reach out. We are living in a dump. The heater doesn't work half the time. The neighbors are loud. It is beneath us. It is beneath the Whitmore name. Julian is in trouble. He needs a good lawyer, not some court-appointed idiot. He made a mistake, Leo. Young men make mistakes. You were always so hard on him. We are willing to forgive you. We are willing to put this whole ugly business behind us. But you need to step up. You need to do your duty. We are your parents. We gave you life. If you don't help us, I don't know what will happen. Your mother is sick with worry. Do you want that on your conscience? Do you want to be the son who let his parents rot? Call me. We can work out a payment plan. We don't need the big house back. But we need something decent. And we need to fix this thing with Julian. P.S. Tell Sophie hello. I stared at the paper. Tell Sophie hello. That was it. That was the only mention of my daughter. Postscript. An afterthought attached to a ransom note. Even now, after losing everything, after being humbled by life, he couldn't bring himself to apologize to her. He couldn't acknowledge that his cruelty towards a 5-year-old was the catalyst for his downfall. He still saw himself as the victim. He still saw me as the bank account. He still saw Julian as the martyr. They hadn't learned a thing. I felt a presence at the door. Chloe was standing there, hair damp, smelling of lavender soap. Is that from them? She asked. Yeah. What does it say? The usual, I said. Guilt, shame, demands. They forgive me. Chloe laughed. A sharp, incredulous sound. They forgive you? That's rich. They want money for Julian's lawyer. Of course they do. Chloe walked over and put her hands on my shoulders. What are you going to do? I looked at the letter. I looked at the lighter on my desk. A heavy, silver Zippo I kept for lighting candles. Sterling told me something interesting yesterday, I said. He said that under state law, because I provided for them for so long, they actually tried to build a case for implied contract of support. They tried to sue me for alimony, essentially. But no lawyer would take the case because of the abuse evidence we have. So they are desperate, Chloe said. They are. I flicked the lighter open. The flame danced, yellow and blue. I used to think that real family meant the people who shared your history, I said, watching the flame. I thought it meant the people who knew you when you were a child. I thought it was a debt you paid for being born. I held the corner of the letter to the flame. The paper caught instantly. But it's not, I continued. Real family isn't about history. It's about the future. It's about who stands beside you when the world is burning. It's about who passes you the cake. We watched the letter burn. The words Julian, Whitmore name, and duty curled into black ash. I dropped the burning paper into the metal wastebasket and watched it turn to dust. It's over, I said. Do you want to send a reply? Chloe asked. No. I shook my head. Silence is the only language they understand. Any response, even a refusal, feeds their ego. It tells them they still have access to me. They don't. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city lights were blinking on. Somewhere out there, in a cramped apartment, my father was probably staring at his phone, waiting for it to ring. He would wait tonight. He would wait tomorrow. He would wait for the rest of his life. Because the Leo who craved his approval died the moment he denied my daughter that cake. Come on, I said to Chloe. Let's go read Sophie a bedtime story. Which one? Something with dragons. I smiled. She likes the ones where the dragon gets defeated. I walked out of the study and closed the door. I didn't lock it. I didn't need to. The monsters were outside, and they could never get in again. My name is Leo. I'm a father, a husband, and a survivor. And I finally know exactly who I am. That brings us to the end of this journey. It wasn't an easy story to tell, and I know many of you watching might be going through something similar. If there is one thing I want you to take away from my experience, it is this: biology is not a suicide pact. We are often taught that we must honor our parents and support our family no matter what. But there is a difference between supporting family and enabling abuse. When keeping the peace requires you to sacrifice your dignity, your mental health, or the well-being of your children, the price is too high. My father's real grandkids comment wasn't just an insult. It was a revelation. It showed me that to him, love was conditional. It was based on genetics and ego. But real love, the kind I have for Sophie, and the kind Chloe has for me, is chosen. It is an action, not a birthright. You have the right to close the door on toxicity. You have the right to stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a responsible one. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to cut off a toxic family member to protect your peace? Or do you think I was too harsh on my aging parents? Drop a good in the comments if you agree with how I handled this, or share your own story of setting boundaries. Thanks for watching, and remember, the cake is for everyone who deserves it.